Question 1. Governance review demonstrates that a driving instructor in New South Wales, NSW, is considering how to best facilitate a learner driver's progression towards obtaining their provisional license, given the learner's expressed eagerness to get on the road quickly. Option A suggests to the learner driver that the requirement for supervised driving hours can be waived if they demonstrate proficiency in a few specific driving maneuvers during a brief informal assessment. Option B recommend the learner driver for a provisional license immediately, based on their confident self-assessment of their driving abilities, without requiring them to complete the formal practical driving assessment. Option C. Ensure the learner driver completes all mandatory supervised driving hours as stipulated by NSW regulations and successfully passes the hazard perception test and the practical driving test before recommending them for a provisional license. Option D. Advise the learner driver that their enthusiasm to drive quickly is sufficient justification to bypass the formal hazard perception test, as long as they have accumulated a significant number of informal driving hours. Correct answer is C. Ensure the learner driver completes all mandatory supervised driving hours as stipulated by NSW regulations and successfully passes the hazard perception test and the practical driving test before recommending them for a provisional license. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for a driver to obtain a license with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to New South Wales, NSW, licensing regulations. Misinterpreting or circumventing these regulations can lead to unqualified drivers on the road, increasing the risk of accidents and contravening the Road Transport Act 2013, NSW. Careful judgment is required to ensure all legal and safety requirements are met without undue delay or compromise. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves diligently following the established NSW licensing process, which includes mandatory completion of all required training and assessments. This approach ensures that the applicant has demonstrated the necessary skills and knowledge to operate a vehicle safely and legally within NSW. The Road Transport Act 2013, NSW, and associated regulations mandate specific requirements for obtaining a driver's license, including practical driving tests and, where applicable, supervised driving hours. Adhering to these requirements is not only a legal obligation, but also an ethical imperative to protect public safety. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves expediting the licensing process by overlooking the requirement for supervised driving hours. This directly contravenes the Road Transport Driver Licensing Regulation 2017, NSW, which specifies minimum supervised driving experience for certain license classes. This failure to comply with regulatory requirements poses a significant safety risk, as the applicant may not have sufficient practical experience in diverse driving conditions. Another incorrect approach is to accept a driver's self-declaration of competence without verifying completion of the mandatory hazard perception test. The Road Transport Act 2013, NSW, mandates this test to assess a driver's ability to identify and respond to potential road hazards. Bypassing this assessment means the applicant has not proven their understanding of crucial safety principles, making them a potential danger on NSW roads. A third incorrect approach is to issue a license based on a belief that the applicant is a natural driver and therefore does not need to complete the formal practical driving assessment. This subjective judgment ignores the objective standards set by NSW licensing authorities, as outlined in the driver licensing guidelines. The practical driving test is designed to assess specific competencies and adherence to road rules, and its omission means the applicant has not been formally evaluated against these critical safety benchmarks. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a systematic decision-making process. This involves 1. Identifying the specific regulatory requirements of the NSW licensing framework. 2. Verifying that all mandatory steps, such as training, testing, and documentation, have been completed by the applicant. 3. Prioritizing road safety and public welfare above any perceived need for expediency. 4. Documenting all decisions and actions taken in accordance with established procedures and legal obligations. Question 2. Governance review demonstrates that a learner driver in New South Wales, NSW, arrives for their lesson with a vehicle that has a known significant issue with its braking system, which the learner mentions casually, stating they need to get to the mechanic later. What is the most appropriate course of action for the driving instructor? Option A. Proceed with the lesson, but focus on low-speed driving in a quiet area, acknowledging the braking problem. Option B. Refuse to conduct the driving lesson until the vehicle's braking system is repaired and confirmed as roadworthy. Option C. Advise the learner to continue with the lesson and address the braking issue after the session is completed. Option D. Allow the learner to drive to the nearest mechanic, emphasizing caution due to the braking issue. The correct answer is B. Refuse to conduct the driving lesson until the vehicle's braking system is repaired and confirmed as roadworthy. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for efficient service delivery with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to New South Wales NSW road rules. A driver's personal circumstances, while understandable, cannot override legal obligations and the responsibility to operate a vehicle safely. The challenge lies in making a judgment call that upholds the law and public safety without being overly rigid or dismissive of the individual situation, though the legal framework dictates the ultimate decision. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves strictly adhering to the NSW road rules regarding vehicle condition and driver fitness. This means recognizing that a vehicle with a known, significant defect, such as a malfunctioning braking system, is inherently unsafe and illegal to operate. The correct approach prioritizes the safety of the driver, passengers, and other road users by refusing to allow the vehicle to be driven until the defect is rectified and the vehicle is deemed roadworthy by a qualified mechanic. This aligns with the Road Transport Act 2013, NSW, and associated regulations, which mandate that vehicles must be maintained in a safe condition. The ethical imperative is to prevent harm and uphold the law, which are fundamental responsibilities for anyone involved in road safety, including driving instructors or examiners. Incorrect approaches analysis. Allowing the learner driver to proceed with the lesson despite the known braking issue is a direct contravention of the Road Transport Act 2013, NSW, and the NSW Road User Handbook. This approach creates an unacceptable risk of an accident, potentially leading to injury or death, and would expose the instructor to severe legal and professional repercussions. Demonstrates a failure to uphold the duty of care owed to the learner and the public. Suggesting the learner drive to the nearest mechanic without proper assessment of the braking system's severity is also irresponsible. While seemingly a practical solution, it assumes the vehicle is safe enough for even a short journey, which is not established. If the brakes fail completely during this short trip, the consequences could be catastrophic. This approach bypasses the necessary safety checks and legal requirements for a vehicle to be on the road. Focusing solely on the learner's desire to complete the lesson and downplaying the braking issue is ethically and legally unsound. The primary objective of driver training is to produce safe and competent drivers who understand and respect road rules. Ignoring a critical safety defect undermines this objective and prioritizes convenience over safety, which is a fundamental breach of professional conduct and legal obligation. Professional reasoning. Professionals in road safety roles must adopt a risk management framework that prioritizes legal compliance and public safety above all else. When faced with a situation involving potential safety hazards, the decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the specific legal requirements and potential risks. 2. Assessing the severity of the hazard against those requirements. 3. Consulting relevant guidelines and regulation. 4. Making a decision that unequivocally upholds safety and legality, even if it causes inconvenience. In this case, the known braking defect triggers immediate legal and safety concerns that necessitate halting the driving activity until the vehicle is certified as roadworthy. Question 3. Governance review demonstrates that a client in New South Wales, NSW, is seeking advice regarding their driver's license status, which they believe is currently suspended. They are asking if they can still drive their vehicle for essential purposes while awaiting clarification from the relevant NSW authorities. What is the most appropriate professional response? Option A. Inform the client that driving with a suspended license in New South Wales is illegal and carries severe penalties, and they must not operate a vehicle until their license status is officially confirmed as valid. Option B. Suggest to the client that they can try driving carefully and hope they are not stopped by police in New South Wales, as the suspension might not be actively enforced immediately. Option C. Explain that while driving with a suspended license is generally not permitted in New South Wales, there might be exceptions for essential travel that can be discussed with the authorities. Option D. Advise the client that if the suspension is for a minor infraction and they feel capable of driving safely, they may be able to drive for essential purposes in New South Wales. The correct answer is A. Inform the client that driving with a suspended license in New South Wales is illegal and carries severe penalties, and they must not operate a vehicle until their license status is officially confirmed as valid. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for a driver to operate a vehicle with the legal and safety requirements mandated by the New South Wales NSW road transport legislation. A driver's understanding of their license conditions and the implications of failing to adhere to them is paramount for road safety and legal compliance. The challenge lies in ensuring the driver fully comprehends the consequences of their actions and makes a responsible decision. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves clearly and unequivocally informing the driver that they cannot legally operate a vehicle if their license is suspended or disqualified in NSW. This approach directly addresses the legal prohibition and the safety implications. The Road Transport Act 2013, NSW, and associated regulations strictly prohibit individuals from driving while their license is suspended or disqualified. Failure to comply carries significant penalties, including further disqualification, fines, and potential imprisonment. Ethically, a professional has a duty to uphold the law and promote road safety, which includes preventing unlicensed or disqualified individuals from driving. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves advising the driver that they might be able to drive if they feel okay, or if the suspension is not too serious. This is a direct contravention of NSW road transport law. The severity of the suspension or disqualification is irrelevant. Any suspension or disqualification renders the driver legally unable to drive. This approach demonstrates a severe lack of professional integrity and a disregard for legal obligations and public safety. Another incorrect approach is to suggest that the driver could take a chance or drive carefully until the issue is resolved. This encourages illegal activity and actively undermines the purpose of license suspensions and disqualifications, which are imposed for reasons of public safety. It also exposes the driver to severe legal repercussions and potential harm to themselves and others. A further incorrect approach is to focus solely on the administrative aspect of the suspension, without clearly articulating the immediate legal prohibition on driving. While understanding the process of appealing or resolving the suspension is important, it does not negate the current legal status of the driver's license. The primary and immediate concern is the legal inability to drive. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this situation must adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes legal compliance and public safety. This involves 1. Clearly identifying the legal status of the driver's license according to NSW legislation. 2. Communicating the legal ramifications of driving with a suspended or disqualified license in NSW without ambiguity. 3. Advising the driver on the correct legal procedures for addressing their license status, rather than suggesting workarounds. 4. Upholding ethical obligations to promote road safety and deter illegal behavior. Question 4. Quality control measures reveal that a new applicant for a NSW driver license claims to have completed all necessary training, but is missing a key piece of verifiable documentation. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure compliance with the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017? Option A. Provide the applicant with unofficial study guides that focus on common test questions to help them pass the knowledge test quickly. Option B. Insist on the applicant providing the missing verifiable documentation as per the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017 before proceeding with any part of the licensing process. Option C. Suggest the applicant consider obtaining a license from a neighboring state where documentation requirements might be less strict. Option D. Advise the applicant to attempt the driving test anyway, as the examiner may be lenient with minor documentation issues. The correct answer is B. Insist on the applicant providing the missing verifiable documentation as per the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017 before proceeding with any part of the licensing process. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for a driver to obtain a license with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017. The challenge lies in discerning genuine need from potential shortcuts that could compromise public safety. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all licensing requirements are met without undue delay, but also without compromising the integrity of the licensing process. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves strictly adhering to the established procedures for obtaining an NSW driver license as outlined in the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017. This means ensuring the applicant has completed all mandatory training, passed all required tests, including knowledge and practical driving tests, and provided all necessary documentation, such as proof of identity and residency. This approach is correct because it directly upholds the regulatory framework designed to ensure that only competent and qualified individuals are granted driving privileges, thereby protecting public safety on NSW roads. It prioritizes compliance with the law and the established standards for driver competency. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves expediting the licensing process by overlooking minor documentation discrepancies or accepting a verbal assurance of training completion without verification. This is professionally unacceptable as it bypasses the explicit requirements of the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017, which mandates specific documentation and proof of competency. Such a shortcut undermines the integrity of the licensing system and could lead to unqualified individuals operating vehicles, posing a significant risk to road safety. Another incorrect approach is to suggest the applicant seek a license in another jurisdiction with potentially less stringent requirements, even if the applicant resides in NSW. This is ethically and regulatorily unsound. The NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017 governs licensing for individuals operating vehicles within NSW. Circumventing these regulations by advising on alternative, potentially weaker, licensing pathways is a serious breach of professional duty and potentially illegal, as it facilitates non-compliance with NSW road laws. A further incorrect approach is to provide the applicant with unofficial study materials or tips that are not aligned with the official NSW driver license handbook or approved testing methods. While seemingly helpful, this can mislead the applicant about the actual requirements and standards expected in the official tests. It fails to ensure the applicant is adequately prepared according to the official syllabus and could result in the applicant failing the official tests, or worse, passing without truly understanding safe driving practices, as mandated by NSW regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this situation should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and public safety above all else. This involves 1. Thoroughly understanding the specific requirements of the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017. 2. Verifying all applicant documentation and training records against these regulations. 3. Clearly communicating the official process and requirements to the applicant. 4. Refusing any requests that deviate from or attempt to circumvent the established legal framework. 5. Escalating complex or unusual situations to supervisors or relevant authorities if unsure about the correct procedure. The focus must always be on ensuring the applicant meets the legal and safety standards for driving in NSW. Question 5. Governance review demonstrates that a driver approaching a section of road in New South Wales, NSW, encounters a temporary traffic control system indicating a lane closure ahead due to roadworks. The system includes temporary signs and a traffic controller directing vehicles to merge into the adjacent lane. What is the legally and ethically required action for the driver? Option A. Merge into the adjacent lane as directed by the temporary signs and traffic controller. Option B. Slow down slightly but continue in the closed lane, believing it is still passable. Option C. Proceed in the closed lane, assuming the roadworks are minor and pose no immediate risk. Option D. Ignore the temporary signage and continue on the original path, as permanent road markings are still visible. The correct answer is A. Merge into the adjacent lane as directed by the temporary signs and traffic controller. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for efficient road usage with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to New South Wales NSW road rules. Misinterpreting or disregarding the implications of a temporary traffic control device can lead to dangerous situations, fines, and demerit points for the driver, and potentially compromise the safety of other road users and workers. Careful judgment is required to understand the intent and authority of temporary signage. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves understanding that temporary traffic control devices, such as those used for roadworks or events in NSW, are legally binding and must be obeyed as if they were permanent traffic signals or signs. This approach prioritizes safety and compliance with the Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2018, NSW. Specifically, Rule 306 of the NSW Road Rules mandates that drivers must obey traffic lane arrows and other signs and signals that direct traffic. Therefore, following the directions of the temporary traffic controller or the temporary signs is the only legally and ethically sound action. Incorrect approach is analysis. Failing to acknowledge the authority of temporary traffic control devices and proceeding as if the road were clear is a direct violation of NSW road rules. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the legal implications of such signage and a disregard for the safety measures put in place, potentially leading to accidents. Assuming that temporary signage is merely advisory and can be ignored if the driver perceives no immediate danger is also a serious regulatory failure. Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2018, NSW, does not provide for driver discretion in obeying temporary traffic control. This approach undermines the entire system of traffic management designed to protect road users and workers, treating temporary signage as a suggestion rather than a directive, and only slowing down slightly without fully complying with the indicated lane closure or redirection is equally problematic. This partial compliance can still create confusion for other drivers and workers, and does not fulfill the driver's obligation to follow the specific instructions provided by the temporary traffic control. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach temporary traffic control situations by recognizing that these are official directives designed for safety. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the temporary traffic control device, sign, signal, or controller. 2. Understanding its specific instruction e.g. lane closure, speed reduction, redirection. 3. Obeying the instruction fully and without delay, as mandated by the Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2018 NSW. 4. Remaining vigilant for any further instructions or changes. Question 6. System analysis indicates a driver in New South Wales NSW is approaching an intersection and the traffic light has just turned red. Considering the Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2018 NSW, what is the most appropriate and legally compliant action for the driver to take? Option A. Continue through the intersection as the light has only just turned red and there is no immediate traffic visible. Option B. Accelerate to try and pass through the intersection before the light turns fully red. Option C. Slow down slightly but proceed through the intersection if there is no other traffic visible. Option D. Prepare to stop before the stop line or intersection, unless stopping would cause a sudden or dangerous braking action. The correct answer is D. Prepare to stop before the stop line or intersection, unless stopping would cause a sudden or dangerous braking action. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driver in New South Wales, NSW, regarding the correct procedure for approaching a traffic light that has just turned red. The challenge lies in understanding the precise legal requirements and safety implications of continuing through an intersection versus stopping, especially when the light has changed very recently. Misinterpreting this situation can lead to serious safety risks, including collisions and traffic infringements. Careful judgment is required to prioritize safety and adherence to NSW road rules. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately preparing to stop when the traffic light turns red, unless the vehicle is so close to the intersection that stopping would cause a sudden or dangerous braking action. This aligns with the Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2018 NSW, specifically Rule 54, which mandates stopping before the stop line, or if there is no stop line before the intersection, when a traffic light is showing a red traffic light signal. The emphasis is on proactive stopping and avoiding entering the intersection on a red light. This approach prioritizes the safety of all road users by ensuring adherence to traffic control signals and preventing potential conflicts. Incorrect approaches analysis. Continuing through the intersection because the light has only just turned red is incorrect because it directly violates NSW road rules. Rule 54 of the Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2018, NSW, clearly prohibits entering an intersection when the traffic light is red. This action creates a significant risk of collision with vehicles or pedestrians who may have commenced their movement on a green light or pedestrian signal. Slowing down but proceeding through the intersection, if there is no other traffic visible, is also incorrect. While the absence of other vehicles might seem to reduce immediate risk, it does not negate the legal requirement to obey traffic signals. The rule is absolute. A red light means stop. Furthermore, relying on the absence of other traffic is a subjective judgment that can be flawed, as other vehicles or pedestrians may be approaching or have already entered the intersection from a different direction. Accelerating to try and beat the red light is fundamentally incorrect and dangerous. This action demonstrates a disregard for traffic laws and a willingness to take unnecessary risks. It significantly increases the likelihood of entering the intersection on a red light and can lead to severe accidents, especially if other drivers or pedestrians are proceeding as legally permitted. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to the law and the safety of themselves and others. This involves understanding and internalizing the specific road rules of NSW, such as Rule 54. When faced with a changing traffic light, the default action should be to prepare to stop. Only in circumstances where stopping would create an immediate and unavoidable danger, e.g., being rear-ended by a following vehicle, should proceeding be considered, and even then, it should be done with extreme caution and awareness of all surroundings. This proactive and rule-abiding approach minimizes risk and ensures responsible driving. Question 7. Governance review demonstrates that a caller, identifying themselves as a NSW driver, has requested immediate access to their driving record details over the phone. What is the most appropriate course of action for the employee to take? Option A. Refuse to provide any information whatsoever and end the call without offering any alternative solutions. Option B. Provide the caller with their driving record details immediately, assuming their self-identification is sufficient. Option C. Inform the caller that direct disclosure of their driving record over the phone is not permitted due to privacy regulations, and advise them on the official process to apply for their record through transport for NSW. Option D. Attempt to retrieve the driving record and provide it to the caller, explaining that you are doing them a favor by expediting the process. The correct answer is C. Inform the caller that direct disclosure of their driving record over the phone is not permitted due to privacy regulations, and advise them on the official process to apply for their record through transport for NSW. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the strict legal and ethical obligations surrounding the disclosure of personal driving records in New South Wales, NSW. Misinterpreting or mishandling such a request can lead to serious privacy breaches, regulatory penalties under NSW privacy legislation, and damage to professional reputation. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance, while still attempting to assist the individual within legal boundaries. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves clearly explaining the limitations of what information can be legally provided directly to the individual without proper authorization. This approach acknowledges the request, demonstrates a willingness to help, but firmly upholds privacy laws. Specifically, in NSW, the Road Transport Act 2013 and associated privacy principles dictate that personal driving record information is generally not disclosed without consent or a specific legal basis. Therefore, advising the caller on the correct procedure to obtain their own record, such as through an official application process with transport for NSW, is the legally compliant and ethically sound method. This respects the individual's right to access their information, while safeguarding it from unauthorized disclosure. Incorrect approaches analysis. Providing the requested information directly to the caller, even if they claim to be the driver, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses the established procedures for verifying identity and authorization, potentially leading to a privacy breach if the caller is not who they claim to be. It directly contravenes the principles of data protection and the specific provisions of NSW road transport legislation that govern access to driving records. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the request entirely without offering any guidance on how the individual can legitimately obtain the information. This demonstrates a lack of customer service and an unwillingness to assist within legal parameters, potentially frustrating the individual and failing to uphold professional standards of helpfulness. Finally, attempting to obtain the information on behalf of the caller without their explicit, documented consent and without following the official application process is also a breach of privacy and regulatory requirements. Professional reasoning. Professionals dealing with requests for personal information should always prioritize adherence to relevant legislation and privacy principles. Decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the nature of the information requested and its sensitivity. 2. Recalling or researching the specific legal framework governing its disclosure in the relevant jurisdiction, in this case, NSW. 3. Assessing the requester's identity and their legal right to access the information. 4. If direct disclosure is not permissible, clearly and politely explaining the limitations and providing guidance on the correct legal procedure for obtaining the information. 5. Documenting the interaction and the advice provided. Question 8. The efficiency study reveals a need to streamline the process for reporting vehicle defects identified during roadside inspections in New South Wales. An inspector encounters a vehicle with a worn tire that poses an immediate safety risk. Which of the following actions best adheres to the regulatory framework for defect reporting in NSW? Option A. Record the defect in a personal logbook and inform the driver that they should report it to the RMS themselves. Option B. Advise the driver to have the tire replaced at their convenience and make a note of it in the inspector's personal logbook. Option C. Issue an official NSW Roads and Maritime Services (RMS) defect notice detailing the worn tire and advising the driver on the required rectification steps. Option D. Verbally inform the driver about the worn tire and suggest they get it repaired as soon as possible. The correct answer is C. Issue an official NSW Roads and Maritime Services (RMS) defect notice detailing the worn tire and advising the driver on the required rectification steps. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a need to optimize the process for reporting vehicle defects identified during roadside inspections in New South Wales, NSW. This scenario is professionally challenging because it involves balancing the immediate need for efficient data collection with the paramount importance of road safety and compliance with NSW road transport legislation. A failure in this process could lead to unaddressed safety defects, potentially causing accidents, and also result in non-compliance with regulatory reporting requirements. The best approach involves immediately documenting the defect using the official NSW Roads and Maritime Services (RMS) defect notice system, which is designed for this specific purpose. This system ensures that the defect is formally recorded, communicated to the vehicle owner, and tracked by the relevant authorities. This aligns directly with the Road Transport Act 2013, NSW, and its associated regulations, which mandate the reporting and rectification of vehicle defects to ensure roadworthiness and public safety. The RMS system provides a clear, auditable trail and ensures that the defect is addressed according to legal requirements. An incorrect approach would be to verbally inform the driver without issuing a formal defect notice. This fails to create a documented record, making it impossible to verify if the defect was reported to the authorities or subsequently rectified. Bypasses the legal framework for defect management in NSW, undermining road safety and regulatory oversight. Another incorrect approach would be to simply advise the driver to get the vehicle repaired without any formal documentation or follow-up. This lacks accountability and does not fulfill the legal obligation to report identified defects. The authorities would have no record of the issue, and there would be no mechanism to ensure the repair was completed to the required standard. A further incorrect approach would be to record the defect in a personal logbook, but not submit it through the official RMS system. While this shows an attempt at record keeping, it does not satisfy the statutory requirement for reporting to the relevant authority. The defect would remain unknown to the RMS, and the vehicle could continue to be operated with a safety issue without proper oversight. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and public safety. This involves understanding the specific legal requirements of NSW road transport legislation, utilizing the designated official reporting systems, and ensuring that all actions taken are documented and auditable. When faced with a potential defect, the immediate step should be to consult the relevant legislation and procedural guidelines to determine the correct reporting mechanism. Question 9. Governance review demonstrates that a driver operating on an NSW highway during a heavy downpour with significantly reduced visibility is considering their approach to driving. Which of the following represents the most responsible and legally compliant action in this situation? Option A. Continue driving at the posted speed limit, assuming other drivers will adjust their behavior. Option B. Rely on the vehicle's advanced safety features to compensate for the adverse weather conditions. Option C. Only consider reducing speed if visibility becomes so poor that the vehicle cannot be seen by others. Option D. Reduce speed significantly, increase following distance, and maintain heightened awareness of potential hazards. The correct answer is D. Reduce speed significantly, increase following distance, and maintain heightened awareness of potential hazards. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for efficient road use with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to New South Wales NSW road rules. A driver's understanding of their responsibilities extends beyond simply operating a vehicle. It encompasses a proactive approach to maintaining safe driving conditions for themselves and others. Misinterpreting or disregarding the implications of road conditions can lead to dangerous situations, fines, and demerit points, undermining the integrity of the NSW road transport system. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a driver actively assessing the road conditions and adjusting their driving behavior accordingly to ensure safety and compliance with NSW road rules. This means understanding that adverse conditions, such as heavy rain, require a reduction in speed, increased following distance, and heightened awareness of potential hazards like reduced visibility and slippery surfaces. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the fundamental principles of safe driving and the explicit requirements of the NSW Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2018, which mandates drivers to drive with due care and attention and to adapt their driving to the prevailing conditions. It prioritizes the safety of all road users, which is the primary ethical and regulatory objective. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves continuing to drive at the posted speed limit despite heavy rain and reduced visibility. This fails to acknowledge the increased risks associated with wet conditions, such as longer braking distances and the potential for aquaplaning. It directly contravenes the requirement to drive with due care and attention and to adapt to conditions, potentially leading to a loss of control and a collision, which is a serious breach of road safety regulations in NSW. Another incorrect approach is to assume that other drivers will compensate for any reduced visibility or slippery conditions. This demonstrates a lack of personal responsibility and an abdication of the driver's duty of care. Relying on others to manage risks is not a safe or legally sound strategy and can lead to dangerous interactions on the road, as it does not guarantee that all drivers will act predictably or safely. A further incorrect approach is to only consider reducing speed if visibility becomes so poor that the vehicle cannot be seen by others. This is a reactive and dangerously insufficient measure. Road safety in NSW requires a proactive approach, anticipating hazards rather than waiting for them to become critical. Reduced visibility inherently increases stopping distances and the likelihood of misjudging distances, making a significant speed reduction essential well before the point of being unseen. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a proactive and risk-averse mindset when driving. This involves a continuous assessment of the driving environment, including weather, road surface, traffic density, and other road users. The decision-making process should prioritize safety and regulatory compliance above all else. When faced with changing conditions, the immediate action should be to adjust speed and increase following distance to maintain a safe margin of error. This aligns with the NSW driver's license requirements, which emphasize responsible and safe driving practices. Question 10. Stakeholder feedback indicates a need for more precise time management in driving instruction within New South Wales. A driving instructor is planning a training program for a new learner driver. The NSW driver training syllabus outlines specific modules requiring a total of 3 hours of dedicated instruction time. The instructor aims to ensure the learner is thoroughly prepared for their practical driving test, incorporating sufficient practice and review. If the instructor decides to add a 20% buffer to the minimum syllabus time for practice and refinement, what is the total planned training duration in hours? Option A, 5 hours. Option B, 6 hours. Option C, 3 hours. Option D, 6 hours. The correct answer is D, 6 hours. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driving instructor in New South Wales, NSW, by requiring them to balance the practical needs of a student with the strict requirements of the NSW driver training syllabus and road rules. The instructor must ensure the student is not only competent, but also meets the specific criteria for passing the practical driving test, which includes demonstrating proficiency in various maneuvers and adherence to speed limits. The challenge lies in accurately calculating the time required for effective training, while managing the student's expectations and the instructor's own time constraints, all within the legal framework of NSW. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves calculating the minimum required training time based on the syllabus, and then adding a buffer for practice and refinement. This approach directly aligns with the NSW driver training syllabus, which outlines specific competencies that must be mastered. For instance, if the syllabus mandates 1 hour for hazard perception training and 2 hours for urban driving practice, a total of 3 hours is the baseline. Adding a 20% buffer for review and additional practice, as suggested by best practices in adult education and skill acquisition, ensures thorough preparation. This translates to /3 / hours times 1, 20 equals 6 / hours /. This approach is correct because it prioritizes comprehensive skill development and test readiness, adhering to the spirit and letter of the NSW driver training syllabus, which aims to produce safe and competent drivers. It also demonstrates professional responsibility by not rushing the learning process. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to simply allocate the minimum time specified in the syllabus without any additional practice. This would mean training for exactly 3 hours. This is professionally unacceptable because it fails to account for individual learning paces and the need for reinforcement. The NSW driver training syllabus is a guideline, not a rigid timetable for every learner. A learner might require more time to master certain skills, and neglecting this can lead to an unprepared driver, potentially failing the test or, more critically, posing a risk on the road. Another incorrect approach is to base the training time solely on the student's perceived confidence, without a structured calculation. For example, if the student feels confident after 5 hours, the instructor might stop. This is ethically and regulatorily flawed as it bypasses the structured assessment of competencies outlined in the NSW syllabus. Confidence does not always equate to competence, and the instructor has a duty of care to ensure all required skills are demonstrated to a satisfactory standard, irrespective of the student's subjective feelings. A further incorrect approach is to add an excessive buffer, such as doubling the minimum required time without justification. For instance, training for 6 hours when the syllabus suggests 3. While seemingly thorough, this can be financially exploitative and inefficient, potentially discouraging the student. It also deviates from a professional, evidence-based approach to training duration, suggesting a lack of understanding of effective learning strategies and resource management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a data-driven and syllabus-aligned approach. First, identify the core competencies and their minimum time allocations from the official NSW driver training syllabus. Second, calculate the total minimum time. Third, apply a reasonable, evidence-based buffer, e.g., 15–25%, to account for individual learning variations in practice. This ensures compliance with regulatory requirements while prioritizing learner success and road safety. Regularly assess the student's progress against syllabus benchmarks to adjust the buffer if necessary. Question 11. Governance review demonstrates that a driver has observed another vehicle exhibiting highly erratic and dangerous driving behavior on a busy road in Sydney, NSW. The driver is concerned about the potential for an accident. What is the most appropriate and legally compliant course of action to take in New South Wales? Option A. Pull alongside the erratic vehicle and attempt to signal the driver to stop or pull over. Option B. Continue to follow the erratic vehicle for a significant distance to gather more evidence before reporting it. Option C. Immediately pull over to a safe location off the roadway and contact the NSW Police or Roads and Maritime Services, RMS, to report the observed behavior. Option D. Attempt to record the other driver's license plate number and details while continuing to drive, to report them later. Correct answer is C. Immediately pull over to a safe location off the roadway and contact the NSW Police or Roads and Maritime Services, RMS, to report the observed behavior. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the legal and ethical obligations to protect personal privacy and comply with New South Wales NSW road rules. Misinterpreting or misapplying the rules can lead to significant penalties, including fines and demerit points, and compromise the integrity of the driver licensing system. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any information gathering is conducted lawfully and ethically. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately pulling over to a safe location off the roadway and then contacting the appropriate authorities, such as the NSW Police or the Roads and Maritime Services, RMS, to report the observed behavior. This approach is correct because it prioritizes safety by removing the vehicle from active traffic. It also ensures that the reporting of the observed dangerous driving is done through the proper channels, allowing for official investigation and action if warranted, in accordance with the Road Transport Act 2013, NSW, and associated regulations concerning traffic offenses and reporting procedures. This upholds the principles of responsible road use and adherence to NSW traffic laws. Incorrect approach is analysis. Failing to stop and instead attempting to record the driver's details while continuing to drive is a regulatory failure. This action is inherently dangerous as it diverts the driver's attention from the road, increasing the risk of an accident. It also contravenes the NSW road rules regarding safe driving practices and maintaining proper control of a vehicle. Furthermore, attempting to gather information in this manner may be seen as vigilantism and could lead to legal complications. Continuing to follow the vehicle for an extended period to gather more information without reporting it immediately is also problematic. While the intention might be to gather evidence, prolonged following can be perceived as harassment or stalking, which is an offense. It also keeps the reporting driver engaged in a potentially risky situation for longer than necessary, delaying the proper reporting of a dangerous driver to the authorities who are equipped to handle such matters. Directly confronting the driver of the other vehicle, while both vehicles are still in traffic, is a significant safety and legal failure. This action creates an immediate and dangerous situation for both drivers and other road users. It can escalate into a confrontation, potentially leading to road rage incidents, and is not the prescribed method for reporting traffic violations in NSW. The NSW road rules and law enforcement protocols do not endorse such direct in-traffic interventions. Professional reasoning. Professionals encountering such situations should follow a clear decision-making process. 1. Prioritize immediate safety for themselves and others. 2. Remove themselves from immediate danger by pulling over safely. 3. Report the observed behavior to the relevant authorities, NSW Police or RMS, using official channels. 4. Avoid any actions that could be construed as illegal, unsafe, or confrontational. This systematic approach ensures compliance with NSW road transport legislation and promotes responsible road citizenship. Question 12. The risk matrix shows a potential hazard of a vehicle failing to stop a stop sign with a low likelihood but severe consequence. Considering the Road Transport Driver Licensing Regulation 2017 NSW, which approach best mitigates this risk when approaching a stop sign in New South Wales. Option A. Stop only if another vehicle is clearly approaching the intersection. Option B. Glance at the stop sign and proceed if no immediate traffic is visible. Option C. Conduct a thorough scan of the intersection in all directions. Be prepared to stop if any hazard is detected, and proceed only when it is safe to do so. Option D. Assume other drivers will obey traffic laws and proceed cautiously after a brief look. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough scan of the intersection in all directions. Be prepared to stop if any hazard is detected, and proceed only when it is safe to do so. Explanation. The risk matrix shows a potential hazard of a vehicle failing to stop at a stop sign, with a low likelihood but severe consequence, e.g., serious injury or fatality. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to proactively identify and mitigate risks that may not be immediately apparent or frequent, balancing the need for caution with efficient road use. Careful judgment is required to implement appropriate safety measures without causing undue disruption or confusion to other road users. The best approach involves a comprehensive scan of the intersection, including checking for pedestrians, cyclists, and other vehicles in all relevant directions, and being prepared to stop if necessary, even if visibility appears clear. This aligns with the fundamental principles of safe driving and the road transport, driver licensing, Regulation 2017, NSW, which mandates drivers to obey all traffic signals and signs, and to exercise due care and attention to avoid accidents. This proactive and cautious approach prioritizes the safety of all road users, which is the paramount ethical and legal obligation of a licensed driver in New South Wales. An approach that involves only a cursory glance at the stop sign and proceeding if no immediate traffic is visible fails to meet the required standard of care. This is a regulatory failure, as it directly contravenes the requirement to obey traffic signs and exercise due care. It also presents an ethical failure by disregarding the potential for unseen hazards and prioritizing personal convenience over the safety of others. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on the assumption that other drivers will also obey traffic laws. While this is an ideal scenario, it is not a safe or legally defensible assumption. Road transport, driver licensing, Regulation 2017, NSW, implicitly requires drivers to anticipate and react to potential breaches of traffic laws by others, as a means of accident prevention. This approach demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adequately assess and mitigate risks. A professional driver's decision-making process in such a situation should involve a systematic risk assessment. This includes identifying potential hazards, e.g., blind spots approaching vehicles, pedestrians, evaluating the likelihood and severity of those hazards, and implementing appropriate control measures, e.g., slowing down, scanning thoroughly, stopping if necessary. This process should be ingrained through training and practice, ensuring that safety is always the primary consideration, in accordance with the legal and ethical responsibilities of a licensed driver in New South Wales. Question 13. Market research demonstrates that many new drivers in New South Wales, NSW, find it challenging to consistently maintain appropriate following distances in diverse traffic conditions. As a NSW-accredited driving instructor, you are observing a learner driver during a lesson. Which of the following actions best assesses the learner's understanding and application of safe following distances according to NSW road rules? Option A. Inform the learner of the general rule regarding following distances and ask them to recall it at the end of the lesson. Option B. Observe the learner's following distance in various traffic situations, ask them to explain why they chose that distance, and provide feedback based on their response and observed behavior. Option C. Present the learner with a series of diagrams showing different traffic scenarios and ask them to identify the correct following distance in each. Option D. Focus on other aspects of driving and briefly mention the importance of following distance without specific observation or questioning during the lesson. The correct answer is B. Observe the learner's following distance in various traffic situations, ask them to explain why they chose that distance, and provide feedback based on their response and observed behavior. Explanation. Market research demonstrates that many new drivers in New South Wales, NSW, struggle with understanding and applying the rules regarding safe following distances, particularly in varying traffic conditions. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driving instructor to assess a learner's comprehension and practical application of a critical safety rule, not just their rote memorization. The instructor must ensure the learner can adapt their behavior to real-world situations, which can be unpredictable and stressful. The best approach involves the instructor actively observing the learner's behavior in real-time traffic, prompting them to articulate their reasoning for their chosen following distance, and providing immediate, constructive feedback. This method directly assesses the learner's understanding and ability to apply the NSW road rules, specifically Rule 129 concerning following distances. By asking the learner to explain their choices, the instructor can identify any misconceptions or gaps in their knowledge and correct them in context. This aligns with the ethical responsibility of an instructor to ensure a learner is not only licensed, but also a safe and responsible road user, adhering to the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017. An incorrect approach would be to simply state the rule about following distances and assume the learner understands and will apply it. This fails to verify comprehension and practical application, potentially leaving the learner with a dangerous misunderstanding. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on the learner's ability to identify the correct distance in a static scenario, like a diagram, without observing their behavior in dynamic traffic. This neglects the crucial element of real-world application and the ability to adjust distances based on speed, road conditions, and other vehicles, which is a core requirement for safe driving in NSW. Finally, an approach that prioritizes completing the lesson quickly over ensuring thorough understanding of safety rules would be professionally negligent and ethically unsound, as it compromises the learner's safety and the safety of other road users. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes learner safety and comprehension. This involves 1. Assessing the learner's current understanding, 2. Providing clear instruction and context, 3. Observing practical application in varied conditions, 4. Offering specific and timely feedback, and 5. Verifying comprehension through questioning and observation before deeming the skill mastered. Question 14. Governance review demonstrates that a company's fleet manager in New South Wales, NSW, needs to identify the registered owner of a vehicle involved in a minor traffic incident on a public road. The manager is aware of the vehicle's registration number. What is the most appropriate and legally compliant method for the fleet manager to obtain the registered owner's details? Option A. Use an unofficial online search engine that claims to provide vehicle owner information based on registration numbers. Option B. Directly contact the driver of the vehicle involved in the incident to request their registration and personal details. Option C. Assume that due to the incident, all vehicle and driver information is readily accessible and proceed to request it from any available internal database. Option D. Submit a formal, documented request to transport for NSW, clearly stating the legal basis and the specific information required to identify the registered owner. The correct answer is D. Submit a formal, documented request to transport for NSW, clearly stating the legal basis and the specific information required to identify the registered owner. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the legal and ethical obligations to protect personal privacy and adhere to specific NSW road rules. Misinterpreting or misapplying the Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017, NSW, or the Road Transport Vehicle Registration, Regulation 2017, NSW, could lead to privacy breaches, legal penalties, and damage to the reputation of the organization. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any request for information is lawful, necessary, and proportionate. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a formal, documented request to the relevant NSW authority, such as Transport for NSW, outlining the specific legal basis for needing the information and the precise details required. This approach aligns with the principles of lawful information access and data protection mandated by NSW legislation. Specifically, the Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017, and the Road Transport Vehicle Registration, Regulation 2017, govern the access and disclosure of driver and vehicle information. A formal request ensures that the process is transparent, auditable, and compliant with the specific provisions for accessing such data, which typically require a legitimate purpose and adherence to privacy principles. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves directly contacting the individual whose details are sought without a clear legal basis or prior authorization. This bypasses established procedures for information access and potentially violates privacy provisions under NSW law, such as those related to the handling of personal information. Another incorrect approach is to assume that because the vehicle is involved in an incident, all associated information is automatically accessible without a formal process. NSW road transport legislation outlines specific circumstances and procedures for accessing driver and vehicle details, and a blanket assumption of access is not permissible. A third incorrect approach is to rely on informal channels or third-party databases that may not be authorized or up-to-date and may not comply with NSW privacy legislation. This can lead to the use of inaccurate information and breaches of data protection laws. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic approach when seeking information related to road incidents in NSW. This involves first identifying the specific legal framework governing the information required, e.g., road transport, driver licensing, Regulation 2017, Road Transport Vehicle Registration, Regulation 2017. Next, they should determine the legitimate purpose for the information request and the specific legal grounds that permit access. Following this, a formal, documented request should be submitted to the appropriate NSW authority, clearly stating the purpose, legal basis, and the exact information needed. This ensures compliance, protects privacy, and maintains professional integrity. Question 15. Governance review demonstrates that a driver, while traveling on the M4 motorway in New South Wales, encounters a section with temporary traffic management signs indicating a reduced speed limit and lane closures due to scheduled maintenance. Which of the following actions best reflects an understanding of NSW road rules and safe driving practices in this context? Option A. Treat the reduced speed limit as a suggestion and only slow down if other vehicles are visibly moving slower or if workers are immediately present. Option B. Proceed at the normal speed limit for the M4 motorway, assuming the temporary signs are advisory and not strictly enforceable for general traffic. Option C. Ignore the lane closure signs and attempt to use the closed lane if it appears to offer a quicker route, as the maintenance is unlikely to affect that specific lane. Option D. Strictly adhere to the reduced speed limit and follow the directions indicated by the temporary traffic management signs, including any lane diversions. The correct answer is D. Strictly adhere to the reduced speed limit and follow the directions indicated by the temporary traffic management signs, including any lane diversions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for efficient road usage with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to New South Wales NSW road rules. Misinterpreting or disregarding the implications of a temporary traffic management plan can lead to dangerous situations, fines, and potential accidents, undermining public trust in road authorities and drivers. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance while understanding the purpose of such plans. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves understanding that temporary traffic management plans are legally binding directives designed to ensure safety during specific roadworks or events. Drivers in NSW are legally obligated to follow the instructions provided by these plans, including speed limits, lane closures, and diversions, as outlined in the Road Transport Road Rules. Regulation 2017, NSW. Adhering to these instructions is not merely a suggestion, but a legal requirement aimed at preventing accidents and ensuring the smooth flow of traffic under altered conditions. This approach prioritizes safety and legal compliance above all else. Incorrect approach is analysis, failing to acknowledge the legal standing of temporary traffic management plans, and proceeding as if normal road rules apply is a significant regulatory failure. This demonstrates a disregard for the Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2017, NSW, which mandates compliance with traffic control signals and direction, including those from temporary measures. It also represents an ethical failure to protect oneself and other road users. Treating temporary speed limit reductions as optional suggestions rather than mandatory requirements is another regulatory and ethical failure. The purpose of reduced speed limits in these zones is to account for specific hazards, such as uneven surfaces, reduced visibility, or the presence of workers. Ignoring these limits directly contravenes the Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2017, NSW, and creates an unacceptable risk of accidents. Assuming that the temporary traffic management plan is solely for the convenience of the road workers and does not directly apply to general traffic flow is a misinterpretation of its purpose. These plans are comprehensive safety measures designed to protect all road users, including drivers, passengers, cyclists, and pedestrians, by managing risks associated with the altered road environment. This assumption leads to a failure to comply with the spirit and letter of the law. Professional reasoning. Professionals encountering temporary traffic management plans should adopt a proactive and compliant mindset. The decision-making process should involve 1. Recognizing the plan as a legally enforceable directive. 2. Understanding that the plan's primary purpose is safety. 3. Strictly adhering to all instructions within the plan, including speed limits, lane usage, and diversions. 4. If unsure about any aspect of the plan, seeking clarification from official sources or observing the behavior of other compliant drivers, rather than making assumptions. Question 16. Governance review demonstrates that a driver in New South Wales, NSW, has been involved in a minor collision with another vehicle in a quiet suburban street, resulting in superficial damage to both cars but no injuries. What is the most appropriate and legally compliant course of action for the driver? Option A. Stop the vehicle immediately at the scene, check for injuries, and exchange details with the other driver before leaving. Option B. Report the incident to their private insurance company as soon as possible and await their instructions. Option C. Wait for a period of time to see if the other driver initiates contact before deciding on a course of action. Option D. Drive away from the scene to assess the damage to their own vehicle at home and contact their insurance company. The correct answer is A. Stop the vehicle immediately at the scene, check for injuries, and exchange details with the other driver before leaving. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driver in New South Wales, NSW, because it involves a situation where a driver's immediate actions could have significant consequences for road safety and legal compliance. The driver must balance the urgency of the situation with the established rules of the road and the specific requirements for reporting incidents. Careful judgment is required to ensure adherence to NSW road laws while also acting responsibly. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately stopping the vehicle at the scene of the incident, ensuring the safety of all involved, and then reporting the incident to the relevant NSW authorities as required by law. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the Road Transport Act 2013, NSW, and associated regulations, which mandate drivers to stop, exchange particulars if required, and report accidents involving injury or significant property damage. This prioritizes immediate safety and legal compliance. Incorrect approaches analysis. Failing to stop at the scene and driving away is a serious offense under NSW law, demonstrating a disregard for the safety of others and a failure to fulfill legal obligations. This action can lead to severe penalties, including license suspension and criminal charges. Reporting the incident only to a private insurance company without notifying the NSW police or relevant transport authorities, if required by law for the specific circumstances, is insufficient. While insurance is important, it does not absolve the driver of their statutory duty to report accidents to the government. Delaying reporting the incident until a later time, after assessing personal damage or convenience, is also unacceptable. NSW law generally requires prompt reporting of accidents, especially those involving injury or significant damage, to allow for timely investigation and assistance. This delay can hinder emergency services and investigations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first prioritizing immediate safety for themselves and others. This is followed by a clear understanding of their legal obligations under NSW road transport legislation. A systematic approach involves 1. Stop safely. 2. Assess the situation and provide assistance if needed. 3. Exchange particulars if required. 4. Report the incident to the appropriate NSW authorities as mandated by law. 5. Contact insurance. This structured decision-making process ensures both legal compliance and responsible conduct. Question 17. The monitoring system demonstrates an unusual pattern of pedestrian movement near a busy intersection in Sydney. What is the most appropriate immediate action for a driver approaching this intersection? Option A. Briefly check mirrors and continue at the current speed. Option B. Maintain current speed and assume pedestrians will move out of the way. Option C. Accelerate to pass through the intersection before the pedestrians reach the road. Option D. Reduce speed significantly and prepare to stop, observing the pedestrian's behavior closely. The correct answer is D. Reduce speed significantly and prepare to stop, observing the pedestrian's behavior closely. Explanation. The monitoring system demonstrates a proactive approach to road safety by identifying potential hazards. The scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to interpret real-time information and make immediate, safe decisions that prioritize the well-being of themselves and other road users, adhering strictly to the NSW road rules. The correct approach involves the driver immediately reducing speed and preparing to stop or take evasive action. This is correct because it directly aligns with the fundamental principles of the NSW Road Transport, Road Rules, Regulation 2018, specifically concerning the duty of care owed by drivers to anticipate and respond to hazards. Rule 297 of the NSW Road Rules mandates that a driver must not drive in a way that creates a hazard to another person. By slowing down and preparing to stop, the driver is actively mitigating the identified hazard, demonstrating responsible and safe driving behavior as expected in NSW. An incorrect approach would be to maintain current speed and assume other road users will react appropriately. This is ethically and regulatorily unsound, as it abdicates the driver's responsibility to actively manage risk and could lead to a breach of the duty of care, potentially violating Rule 297. Another incorrect approach would be to only check mirrors and continue as normal. While mirror checks are important, they do not constitute an adequate response to a clearly identified hazard and fail to address the immediate risk, again contravening the spirit and letter of NSW road safety regulations. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to accelerate to pass the hazard quickly. This is highly dangerous and directly contradicts the principle of hazard avoidance, potentially leading to a serious incident and a clear violation of NSW road rules. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes immediate hazard assessment, adherence to road rules, and the safety of all road users. This involves a systematic evaluation of the situation, considering the potential consequences of each action, and selecting the response that most effectively minimizes risk according to established traffic laws and safe driving practices in NSW. Question 18. During the evaluation of a learner driver's ability to merge into traffic on a busy arterial road in New South Wales, a driving instructor observes consistent hesitation and braking. What is the most effective pedagogical approach to address this challenge while adhering to NSW driver training standards? Option A. Acknowledge the difficulty and postpone further merging practice until the learner has mastered other, less challenging driving skills, focusing on theoretical knowledge instead. Option B. Implement a structured, multi-stage teaching strategy that breaks down the merging process, provides clear instructions, positive reinforcement, and gradual exposure to increasingly complex traffic conditions, adapting the practice environment as needed. Option C. Repeatedly place the learner in high-pressure merging situations to force them to adapt quickly, offering minimal feedback to avoid overwhelming them. Option D. Frequently take control of the vehicle's steering and braking to demonstrate the correct maneuver, intervening immediately whenever hesitation is observed. Correct answer is B. Implement a structured, multi-stage teaching strategy that breaks down the merging process, provides clear instructions, positive reinforcement, and gradual exposure to increasingly complex traffic conditions, adapting the practice environment as needed. Explanation. During the evaluation of a learner driver's progress in New South Wales, NSW, a driving instructor encounters a situation where the learner consistently struggles with merging into moderate traffic on a multi-lane road, exhibiting hesitation and a tendency to brake unnecessarily. This scenario is professionally challenging because the instructor must balance the learner's safety and confidence with the need to prepare them for real-world driving conditions. Adhering to the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017, and the NSW Center for Road Safety's guidelines for driver training. The instructor's judgment is critical in determining the appropriate level of intervention and feedback to foster safe and competent merging skills without causing undue stress or reinforcing bad habits. The best approach involves a structured, progressive teaching method that breaks down the complex skill of merging into manageable steps. This includes pre-merging observation, speed assessment, gap selection, and smooth acceleration. The instructor should provide clear, concise instructions, positive reinforcement for correct actions, and constructive feedback on errors, focusing on the underlying reasons for hesitation, e.g., poor observation, misjudgment of speed. This aligns with the NSW regulatory framework's emphasis on developing safe driving practices and the ethical responsibility of an instructor to impart comprehensive skills. The instructor should also adapt the training environment, perhaps by practicing during quieter periods or on less complex roads initially, before progressing to busier scenarios, ensuring the learner builds confidence incrementally. An incorrect approach would be to repeatedly place the learner in high-pressure merging situations without adequate preparation or to offer vague, unhelpful criticism. This fails to address the root cause of the learner's difficulty and can lead to increased anxiety, potentially resulting in dangerous maneuvers or a reluctance to attempt merging altogether. Another incorrect approach is to overcorrect or take over the steering and pedals too frequently, which undermines the learner's autonomy and prevents them from developing their own judgment and decision-making skills. This also deviates from the goal of fostering independent, safe drivers as mandated by NSW road safety objectives. Finally, ignoring the learner's struggles and proceeding to other topics without ensuring competency in merging would be a dereliction of the instructor's duty of care and a failure to meet the requirements for obtaining an NSW driver license. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes learner safety, progressive skill development, and adherence to regulatory standards. This involves continuous assessment of the learner's capabilities, adapting teaching strategies to individual needs, and providing feedback that is both informative and encouraging. The instructor must consider the specific requirements of NSW road rules and the practical demands of driving in NSW traffic, ensuring the learner is not only compliant, but also a safe and confident road user. Question 19. What factors determine the immediate course of action for a licensed driver in New South Wales experiencing sudden onset of dizziness and blurred vision while operating a motor vehicle? Option A. Driving home slowly and carefully despite experiencing the symptoms. Option B. Assessing personal tolerance for the symptoms before deciding to continue driving. Option C. Immediately ceasing to drive and arranging for alternative transport. Option D. Continuing to drive to the nearest police station to report the symptoms. The correct answer is C. Immediately ceasing to drive and arranging for alternative transport. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the overarching legal and safety obligations imposed by the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017. The driver must make a judgment call that could impact their ability to drive legally and safely, potentially leading to penalties if not handled correctly. Careful consideration of the specific circumstances and the relevant regulations is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately ceasing to drive and arranging for alternative transport. This approach is correct because it directly adheres to the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017, which mandates that a person must not drive a vehicle if they are experiencing a medical condition that is likely to cause them to lose control of the vehicle. By stopping driving, the individual prioritizes public safety and avoids breaching their legal obligations. This proactive measure prevents potential accidents and ensures compliance with the law, demonstrating responsible road user behavior. Incorrect approaches analysis. Continuing to drive while experiencing symptoms of dizziness and blurred vision is a direct contravention of the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017. This approach creates an unacceptable risk to the driver and other road users, as their ability to operate a vehicle safely is compromised. It demonstrates a failure to prioritize safety and legal compliance. Driving to the nearest police station to report the symptoms, while seemingly proactive, is still a violation of the regulation. The act of driving itself, even with the intention of reporting, is prohibited if the driver is experiencing a condition that impairs their ability to control the vehicle. The primary obligation is to stop driving immediately, not to continue driving to a reporting location. Driving home slowly and carefully, despite experiencing symptoms, is also an incorrect approach. The regulation does not allow for subjective assessments of slowly and carefully when a medical condition is likely to cause loss of control. The potential for sudden deterioration of symptoms means that any driving under these circumstances is inherently unsafe and non-compliant. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this situation should employ a risk-based decision-making framework. The primary consideration must always be the safety of themselves and others. This involves understanding and adhering to legal requirements, such as those outlined in the NSW Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2017. When faced with a situation that could impair driving ability, the immediate and safest course of action is to cease driving. If further action is required, such as seeking medical attention or reporting the issue, this should be done through means that do not involve operating a vehicle while impaired. Question 20. Governance review demonstrates that a learner driver in New South Wales, NSW, needs to complete 120 hours of supervised driving experience. The NSW Roads and Maritime Services, RMS, mandates a minimum of 30 minutes rest between each supervised driving session. If the learner driver completes their supervised driving sessions in blocks of 1 hour each, and they can drive a maximum of 3 hours per day. What is the minimum total elapsed time in hours from the start of their first driving session to the end of their last driving session to meet the 120-hour requirement? Option A, 140 hours. Option B, 160 hours. Option C, 150 hours. Option D, 130 hours. The correct answer is B, 160 hours. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driving instructor in New South Wales, NSW, by requiring them to accurately calculate the time required for a student to complete a specific number of driving hours, factoring in a minimum rest period. This demands not only an understanding of the NSW Roads and Maritime Services, RMS, guidelines for learner driver logbooks, but also the ability to perform precise mathematical calculations to ensure compliance. Miscalculation could lead to the student not meeting the required hours, potentially delaying their practical driving test and causing frustration, or conversely, overestimating the time and providing inaccurate advice. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a systematic calculation that accounts for both the total required driving hours and the mandatory minimum rest periods between lessons. This approach directly adheres to the NSW RMS guidelines for learner driver logbooks, which stipulate a minimum duration between supervised driving sessions to ensure learner drivers are adequately rested and can learn effectively. By calculating the total duration needed and then subtracting the minimum rest periods, the instructor ensures that the student's progress is accurately tracked and that all regulatory requirements are met. This method is mathematically sound and ethically responsible, prioritizing the student's learning and compliance with official standards. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves simply dividing the total required hours by the number of lessons without considering the minimum rest period. This fails to account for the regulatory requirement of a minimum duration between supervised driving sessions, potentially leading to an inaccurate estimation of the time needed and a failure to comply with NSW RMS guidelines. Another incorrect approach is to add a fixed amount of time for rest to each lesson, regardless of the actual duration of the lesson or the time of day. This is not aligned with the spirit or letter of the regulations, which focus on a minimum duration between sessions, not a fixed rest period per lesson. It also introduces unnecessary complexity and potential for error in calculation. A further incorrect approach is to only consider the total driving hours and ignore any potential breaks or the need for rest, assuming lessons can be conducted back-to-back without any minimum interval. This directly contravenes the NSW RMS guidelines and demonstrates a lack of diligence in adhering to the established framework for learner driver training. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this task by first identifying the specific regulatory requirements from the NSW RMS for learner driver logbooks, particularly regarding the minimum duration between supervised driving sessions. Then, they should use a clear mathematical formula to calculate the total time required, ensuring that the minimum rest periods are correctly factored in. This involves understanding that the total elapsed time will be greater than the sum of the driving hours due to these mandated intervals. A step-by-step calculation, verifying each step, is crucial for accuracy and compliance.